Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to my presentation on the topic of Shrivelblossom, a mono-black Dandan variant. Shrivelblossom is like Dandan in that both players draw from the same deck of 80 cards and share a graveyard as well. The primary mechanic of Shrivelblossom is life loss, analogous to library manipulation in Dandan. The goal is to ensure that the cards you play ultimately lead, whether directly or indirectly, to your opponent losing more life than you do. The pillars of the format are Bitterblossom and Shrivel, analogous to Dandan and Memory Lapse. Bitterblossom is the format's primary threat. The tokens it creates have the potential to attack multiple times, dealing more damage to your opponent than you suffered when creating them. Shrivel exists as the primary board control mechanism that can punish your opponent for overcommitting to Bitterblossom, killing tokens before they have a chance to deal damage, leading to your opponent failing to break even on their Bitterblossom. Displayed is my current preferred list. 10 Bitterblossom, 8 Shrivel, 2 Withering Torment, 2 Feed the Swarm, 2 Extract the Truth, 2 Dark Confidant, 2 Sign in Blood, 2 Phyrexian Arena, 2 Night's Whisper, 2 Skeletal Scrying, 2 Vampiric Tutor, 2 Thoughtseize, 2 Nightmare Lash, 2 Ratchet Bomb, 2 Death's Shadow, 2 Engineered Plague, 2 Repay in Kind, 2 Witch's Cottage, 2 Leech-Ridden Swamp, 2 Blast Zone, 2 High Market, 2 Strip Mine, 8 Bloodstained Mire, and 14 Swamp. I encourage you to utilize a proxy service for these cards, as 10 Bitterblossoms are costly and this is a casual format. Now, I'll examine the individual cards in greater detail and explain their purpose in the format. Withering Torment can destroy the many highly impactful enchantments, which include, but aren't limited to, Bitterblossom, as well as the few creature threats in the format. Of course, it costs life in keeping with the format's theme. Feed the Swarm is like Withering Torment in its purpose. It costs less mana, but it is a sorcery. Extract the Truth is the only black enchantment removal in the format that doesn't cost life. It is balanced by allowing your opponent to sacrifice their least valuable enchantment if they have multiple. It can also serve as hand disruption. Dark Confidants are 2 of the only 4 creatures in the deck. It's a source of card advantage that costs life. Like the tokens produced by Bitterblossom, it cannot survive Shrivel. Sign in Blood is another source of card advantage that costs life. It can also be used to win the game if your opponent has 2 or fewer life points. The presence of this card in the deck should discourage overtly reckless spending of life. Night's Whisper is like Sign in Blood, but it cannot be used to kill your opponent. Phyrexian Arena is a persistent source of card advantage that costs life. It is one of the major targets for enchantment removal. Skeletal Scrying is a highly powerful but costly source of card advantage and life loss. It is an instant. Vampiric Tutor is a source of card selection that costs life, and is one of the few sources of library manipulation that black has, making it especially interesting in a format where both players share a deck. Tutors are a source of contention among Dandan deck builders because they allow you to discern your opponent's hand based on what's missing from the deck. My recommendation is not to do this and to shame people who do. It shouldn't be hard to tell if your opponent is conducting a full census of the deck and to tell them off for it. Using this card shouldn't take more than 8 seconds. Thoughtseize is an efficient source of hand disruption that costs life, making it well suited for Shrivelblossom. Nightmare Lash can turn a single token into a monumental threat at the cost of the life spent to equip it. It should be noted that, as an artifact, it is very difficult to remove, though the creature that wears it can be killed, forcing the equip cost to be paid again. Ratchet Bomb is a flexible interactive card that can be used immediately to destroy tokens, or can be charged to destroy enchantments and other threats. Ratchet Bombs account for 2 of the 4 cards that can destroy Nightmare Lash. Death's Shadow is a powerful late-game threat that rewards players for spending their life. Death's Shadows are the only creatures that can survive Shrivel, which means that Shrivel can also be used to kill blockers, ensuring that Death's Shadow attacks to deal damage. Engineered Plague is a prison card that renders Bitterblossom a liability. If you have more Bitterblossoms than your opponent, I recommend saving an enchantment removal spell for Engineered Plague. Since it only harms one creature type, it can be used to kill tokens that would otherwise block Dark Confidant, or to kill Dark Confidant. Repay in Kind is a costly late-game finisher that can deal high damage suddenly. It punishes players for being overly stingy with their life. Witch's Cottage is a swamp that can be gotten with Bloodstained Mire. It is another of Black's few sources of library manipulation. It can be used to recur Dark Confidant and Death's Shadow, or to give them to your opponent if they aren't useful in the current game state. Leech-Ridden Swamp is another land that can be gotten with Bloodstained Mire. It can slowly damage your opponent over many turns, but you must first commit 2 permanents to the board, which will more likely than not cost life. Blast Zone is another flexible removal card that can destroy most types of permanents. Unlike Ratchet Bomb, it cannot kill tokens. High Market is the only source of life gain in the format. However, it won't gain more life than you spend because the creature you sacrifice will usually be a token that costs 1 life to create in the first place. In this sense, it undoes a Bitterblossom trigger. It can be used by a player at low life to attack with 1 token every turn and sacrifice the newly created one in order to maintain their life total. It is true that you can sacrifice Dark Confidant or Death's Shadow without spending life, but this is profound card and tempo disadvantage, and I don't recommend it. Strip Mine allows for interaction with the aforementioned utility lands. It can also be used to compound your advantage if you are ahead on lands. Bloodstained Mire can be used to get swamps or utility lands at the cost of life, in keeping with the format's theme. It can also be used to ruin your opponent's Vampiric Tutor or Witch's Cottage. Like Vampiric Tutor, Bloodstained Mire could be used to try and discern an opponent's hand. Don't do that. You can use any black fetchlands instead of Bloodstained Mire, as they are all functionally identical in a mono-black deck. Swamps are swamps. Thank you for watching this presentation. I want to credit Paul Lenihan with the initial conception of a Dandan variant built around Bitterblossom, upon which I have expanded here.